We're back talking about post-incarceration issues that so many people face as they try to re-enter communities throughout Tennessee after they've served their time. Tom Szaniawski is with us, with the re-entry attorney with the Legal Aid Society. So good you're with us and offering your advice and comments to this issue. Let's go back to the phones. Let's get right back to it. Let's see. We're going to go to, I believe, Mike. Hey, Mike.
Hey, good evening, Rhori.
Good evening.
And I hope you start feeling better.
Yeah, thanks.
After the program tonight. And to the guest attorney, I first of all want to thank you for going into a specialty of law that doesn't probably pay as much as commercial law or some other specialties in law. And it takes somebody who just really cares about people to be willing to take that deduction of some of the earnings you could be getting. My question to you tonight is, what states and cities are getting it right as far as helping those who have come out of incarceration? I lived in California for a while. I've lived in northern New Jersey. I lived in D.C. for a second, and I've also lived in Texas. I'm going to guess the Southeast region, or the South in general, probably doesn't do as well as some of the other parts of the country, but then I could be wrong. But if you could just list some of the top 5 states or cities that are getting it right as far as helping those
best practices
who have been incarcerated. And you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, it's an excellent question, and thank you. And I'm happy that I can help folks, which is why I do what I do. So I welcome the questions. This segues into an interesting topic that is an emerging one, and it's not something that a lot of folks know about. But there is currently a nationwide trend towards what is called, the initiative is called the Clean Slate Initiative. And essentially what this is, Pennsylvania is the model because they were the first state to enact this. But essentially what this system provides for is automatic expungements and removal of items from criminal records. It simply happens electronically. You don't have to file any paperwork. You don't have to go to court and ask. There basically is an automated system in place. It's kind of a turnkey model. When you have completed your sentence and an appropriate amount of time has passed, your records are simply purged. Right. And again, it takes a lot of the red tape and the waiting in line and filling out forms and dealing with clerks' offices. Yeah. No offense to any of those folks. But
like Ty mentioned, our earlier caller, even though it was a tax issue, but it kind of, it's an example of everything, you know, that might be disjointed in the process. And I know that, you know, we talked about here in Tennessee, there are a number. I want to just mention, there was the Reentry Success Act of 2021 that provides compensation to Tennessee counties who provide programming for inmates, which can help. There's a whole bunch of reentry programs like Take One. It's a faith-based program that'll connect churches and other nonprofits from around Tennessee with citizens who are returning. There's something called the Tennessee Reentry Collaborative, and then you look at just, you know, like I said, nonprofits like Legal Aid Society, and there's Dismiss House, and there's Unheard Voices Outreach. I'm going through the list here. I've heard of a lot of them: Men of Valor, Gideon's Army, Project Return, and so on. So we have all these groups trying to kind of do the same thing, but is it a coordination issue? Is it what needs to happen, in other words?
With respect to organizations along those lines, we consider them community partners, and we try to foster very strong relationships with the types of facilities that offer services to folks transitioning. You mentioned Dismiss House. Dismiss House is actually one of our closest partners. You know, when somebody comes into Dismiss House, part of their intake paperwork says, you may have legal issues regarding community reentry. Would you like legal aid to contact you? And we do that. So to your point, we try to deal with additional groups. We deal with a lot of groups who place folks for employment, like the American Job Center, for example. But yes, I agree that a greater level of integration would be helpful. And there is a lot of activity, you know, not only with the Bar Association, but with, you know, community advocates.
Right.
excuse me, social workers, so on and so forth. And there is a move to try to weave this into a seamless web.
Sure.
And this kind of relates as well to the prior question about who's getting it right and who's getting it wrong.
Right.
Tennessee, I wouldn't say is at the leading edge of this, but there has been a consistent trend over the last 5 or 7 years where the expungement, which is record removal, the legislation has become more and more friendly towards people who legitimately are looking for a second chance. The list of the types of offenses that can be expunged has been expanded. The process has been streamlined. Many of the costs have been reduced. So in my view, we're moving in the right direction. It's going to take a long time before there's true parity between states and between regions. I think the Northeast seems to be kind of leading this clean slate initiative. But Tennessee is definitely moving, I think, in a promising direction.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I'm sure, politically it could be an issue because it's going to require more funding and an expansion of some of these departments, more people to help, right?
Absolutely. But on the backside, if you consider the Clean Slate Initiative, which again is essentially a provision for automatic expungement, the process in Tennessee is somewhat disjointed. Different courthouses require different forms. Sometimes different judges themselves require different forms. And then you have a different set of forms that follow those forms. You may have to deal with different counties.
Inconsistencies, sure.
Right. And so one thing that I think would be helpful, and the Tennessee Supreme Court has addressed this, but for example, having a standard set of forms that are accepted at every court in Tennessee, that would go a huge way simply towards helping folks navigate the paperwork, because rather than filling out 5 different forms and going to 5 different places, you can fill out one standard form, modify it slightly, and that's one example of the type of steps that I think are worthwhile and that are being taken to cut down on the red tape and to kind of help the process move more smoothly. Because again, to your point, in one regard, there are more resources that will have to be allocated for education and for example, preparation. But again, on the back end, when we consider reductions in recidivism, when we consider higher employment rates, when we consider people reintegrating successfully into their communities and becoming active and becoming community leaders, I think that there is tremendous savings to be seen on the back end. So I don't know the metrics. I haven't read the balance sheets, but I would like to think that net, this is a winning proposition from a budgetary point of view as well as an ethical and moral one. Well,
especially now, like you mentioned, over the last few years, we're starting to move in that direction, and now we're going to have data to look at and be able to show, hey, the benefits are really outweighing anything negative. Let's keep moving this down the road and expanding.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Dorothy is holding, I believe, on line 3. Hi, Dorothy.
Hello. I'm calling in. My son's disabled, and I'm retired, and I've done everything I know to do, fill out my income tax, and they have missed 2 of the similar checks, my check and his check also. And I've called Marshall Blackburn's office. I've done everything I know to do. I filled out the 1040 like they requested, and I haven't heard a thing from them yet. And I think that's wrong. Somebody needs to get to the bottom of it.
Right.
And get them stimulus checks to people and their income tax like they should.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the call. And you mentioned there are some tax groups out there offering help in situations like this.
That's correct. And folks just go ahead and just Google Legal Aid Society, and our website's going to pop up, and there's essentially a menu of different service areas, different offices that we have. We have 8 offices covering 48 counties, and tax issues, as we mentioned earlier, is something that Legal Aid will take on. So use the website, find the areas that are important to you, go ahead and reach out, and we all try our best to make everything work as smoothly as possible.
Yeah. All right. Good luck to you, Dorothy. Let's go to line 4. Hi, Maria. Go ahead. Hi, Maria.
Hey, this is Maria.
Hi.
I just wanted to tell you my story.
Yeah.
My dad got a DUI, got thrown in jail in a wheelchair. And when I was discharged, my phone was dead. I was not allowed to make a phone call. And they drove me to like a grassy area just outside of the jail property or whatever, and was left there.
And this was in Nashville?
Yes.
When did this happen?
2 years ago.
Okay. And obviously
Or a year and a half ago.
it's obviously you're still emotional just talking about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did set up my wheelchair, but I'm sitting there. I have to cross the street, and just so you know,
Maria,
Waffle House
excuse me.
will give you a free call.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind, if it's not too personal. What is your condition that requires the wheelchair?
I have my kneecap's not there anymore.
Okay. So what happened to your wheelchair? Do you know?
Well, no, I mean, they gave me my wheelchair.
Oh, but
they
okay.
set up my wheelchair.
That just left you there. Wow. All right,
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's hear what Tom has to say. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, that's, first of all, my heart goes out to you, as if you didn't go through enough on the front end. It sounds like you were not exactly given a good turn on the back end either. There are definitely discussions being had about kind of reimagining community policing. I actually was lucky enough to partake in a panel discussion sponsored by the Metro Human Resources Council last year. The topic was reimagining community policing, and there's a lively debate about how the interactions between the penal system, whether it be the police or the correctional facility or the back-end discharge process, there are clearly a lot of institutionally based obstacles, and not, I mean, to put it in the most charitable terms, not the nicest treatment for folks who are most vulnerable and are in a very difficult position. So there is a growing awareness of those types of issues, and positive steps are being made. They're not always in the forefront of the public view, but the wheels are turning, and we all hope that things will improve substantially. Although, unfortunately, it won't be an overnight type of thing.
Right. And we're seeing this cultural shift right now. Lots of debate, lots of discussions politically, but culturally, like you mentioned, people pointing out, hey, this is an institutional issue. This is not changed, and too many people don't want to look at it. They're afraid they'll be blamed for it or whatever it is. But I just think more people need to listen and take a look at the facts before them, and things can start to change positively. Now, in her case, she should probably call the Legal Aid Society, right?
She can definitely give us a ring. I'm not sure whether we would be able to help on that specific issue, but one of the nice things about legal aid is that we have what's called a volunteer lawyers program. When folks call us and we don't have somebody within the firm who specializes in a particular area, we have an active network of volunteer lawyers with whom we work. And what we'll do is we'll try to connect folks with an attorney with a specialty in that area. So for someone like the caller, give legal aid a call, let them know that, explain your situation and mention that you heard about the volunteer lawyers program, and they can connect you with somebody. And while there are no guarantees, we're often lucky enough to pair people with kind of needs that are outside of our domain with attorneys who, number one, are willing to volunteer their time because they're passionate about it, and number two, are competent and enthusiastic and caring about doing the work.
thank you for that comment. Maria, thank you for calling, and good luck. I hope you can find the help you need. That just sounds terrible. Real quick, I want to mention, we're talking about voting rights, driver's licenses, all sorts of things. For years, a person coming out of prison, especially a previous felon, just that word alone is almost like has been an albatross for so many people, because there seems to be, roadblocks. Things are starting to change, but is it changing fast enough?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would say that it could never change fast enough. Again, I think that things are progressing. I think that awareness of these issues is spreading. Again, we have a very strong focus on community outreach, getting out there, letting people know what the issues are, what they can do. Right. There are many organizations that are collaborating behind the scenes to try to, again, unify the system. So things are being done, but as to how long it will take, ultimately it's in the hands of the higher ups in our Tennessee government. Right. And then there's expungement, which can be so important, especially for housing. Very much so. Yeah, just to delve into that briefly, expungement is just a fancy lawyer word for removing information from your criminal record. Essentially, there are two types of information that one can have removed from their record. And again, just hearkening back to my earlier comment, a lot of folks have never seen their criminal record until an employer shows them their background check. But a lot of folks have charges that are dismissed or otherwise not prosecuted, but it still says right there on the record, aggravated assault. That draws the eye. Yeah. First thing we look for is charges that were dismissed or not prosecuted. Those can be removed right away at no cost. The second tier involves expunging actual convictions. There are a number of felonies and most misdemeanors where there is an eligibility to have a conviction expunged under the right circumstances. To give you a list would be difficult because it's several pages long, but essentially there's a bullet point list of, if your offense was one of these, it cannot be expunged. If your offense is one of these, it can be expunged. So getting something removed or concealed on your record, for example, when an employer checks your background, that information is not going to be there. So, rather than looking at either junk, dismissed charges, or even better, rather than seeing a conviction for, common scenarios, the youthful indiscretion, the shoplifting charge I had 30 years ago, I was in the wrong place in the wrong time and was charged as an accessory to something. Right. There are honest folks who just are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. And again, when they come out, they may not realize what information is out there. So expungement is really a process where we analyze the individual situation, we pull all the relevant records, and we do everything we can to guide people through the process with our help. And it's definitely, it's something of a magic buzzword, and it's definitely something that folks should do. Everyone should check their criminal record just to know what's on it. And again, you can contact me through legal aid. There is actually a fair amount of information online that can help you locate the right forms and fill them out. I'm going to pause you right there, Tom, just for a second. I'm sorry. We got to go to a break, and we'll pick this up right after this. Thanks. Absolutely.